Here.
Kreese.
Here.
Cole is absent. Darrenowski.
Here.
Georgianne Duberstein. Here. And Chanelwith.
Here. Okay, we've got a quorum. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We got it. Roll call, please.
Trustees George Duberstein.
Aye.
Kreese.
Aye.
Darrenowski.
Aye.
Georgianne Duberstein.
Aye.
And Chanelwith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Public comments? Ian, anything to say?
No.
You sure not?
Good. Just
Okay.
listen.
Thank you. Motion to
Say
approve.
anything?
Chris is just in pain.
Oh.
You want to say ow for the public record?
I would love to, but you wouldn't want to hear it.
Okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Trustees George Duberstein.
Aye.
Kreese.
Aye.
Darrenowski.
Aye.
Georgianne Duberstein.
Aye.
And Chanelwith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Reports. Finance. John.
We are all things budget. I believe we have everybody's budget request turned in. And now comes the inputting and the cutting.
Anything else, sir?
We're trimming.
More trimming.
But more than likely cutting.
Public Works, Mr. Cut Budget, Kreese.
Hello, everyone. Continuing to meet with Mike DePaul, and we reviewed the budget items and finished the budget and turned it in. Also reviewed Ramson's monthly water report, okay, which everything, all the testing on the water system showed no bacteria. It was deemed satisfactory. We, for the month of December, 5,852,000 gallons were treated at a pump, pumped and treated, and with an average of about 188,774 gallons per day being used. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Mike DePaul for his report.
I was going to mention about the budget, but Trustee Kreese already took that out of my report. So, with the help of Dave Schultz and his assistant, we've been out the back of State Farm digging out all the dead trees that are very hazardous to the residents' property. I would like to thank Brett from the Northbrook Sports Club for loaning us his 62-foot bucket lift. Without his lift, we'd have to rent one, and it would be very costly to the village. Since December 31st, we've had 4 snow events with no major issues, with the exception of a couple mailboxes being knocked down, some minor sod damage. All the mailboxes and the turf will be repaired in the spring. There were some questions regarding the purchase of the Chevy dump truck. After doing some research and getting additional information from other municipalities and an independent truck mechanic,
Mike, give me a second to pass
Okay.
this out.
After doing some research and getting additional information from other municipalities and an independent truck mechanic, I've come to find out that the Ford has been having a major problem with the main electrical harness that controls most major functions of the truck. According to the mechanic I talked to, he said Ford has not corrected the issue and has no plans on a recall. I'm afraid if we go with a Ford, we could be spending more time getting this fixed than it's worth. The other question was regarding the size of the truck. I'd like to go with a bigger truck that has a TVWR, which is 19,500 pounds. That's what the total weight of the truck can haul. With a bigger truck, we put more material on the truck, making less trips and saving time. That's all I have.
Examples of where we would have heavier haul.
We're planning on doing a lot of sidewalk panel replacement this year. So all the sidewalks that have to be broken out have to be hauled away. As far as bringing in asphalt or dirt, wood chips to wherever we're going to dump them, and then move them from where the dump site would be to the path. This would haul approximately 2 more yards than the dump truck that we have now.
Okay. The sheets I handed out to you the front page shows the price that we would pay, $69,734. And if you see the back side of that sheet, the Monroe truck equipment are extras that we're putting on, and you can see the individual costs there, that the extras come to a total of $16,451. Then if you flip all the way back, just it's all the way back, it would be the back of the third page. You can see that $64,000 is the total of the truck. Add the $16,451, and you're looking at $80,000 total. And then the front page is what our discount is, taking it down to $69,000. The figures we got, as I think I said in either the mayor's report or an email to you, we're not going with the state program, but we got the state price. Okay, any questions on this for Mike or myself?
One out of curiosity, Mike, you mentioned something about the dump truck that we have that's not big enough. Are we going to keep that?
I would like to keep that tow truck, yes. If we needed to, we could put a chipper box on it in case something happened to the one that Dave uses. We could use our own in an emergency. When we're going to be tearing out sidewalks, we'll have 2 trucks running at the same time so we can move more material.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Mike and Wally. Community events, George.
Okay, several items on the reenactment. All the presenters and the food vendor are confirmed now, so that's good news. Creation of a new flyer was accomplished, and so I will be sending out, now that we've confirmed the new food vendor, or not the new, but the food vendor, I'll be sending him all the documentation that he needs to sign and do something with, so we don't have to wait till the last minute like we have in previous years.
Okay.
I will also now send some information to the Daily Herald and other event calendars so we can get that ongoing. And I'm also waiting information from the military personnel to decide what battle they're going to portray in the theme, so I can put that in the advertisements as appropriate. New subject, shredding event. A month or so ago, Mayor asked me to look into the possibility of having a shredding event here in Hainesville. And so I reached out to Swalwell, and we had a meeting last week, I guess it was, with Mayor, our public works supervisor, and a representative from Swalwell to look and see what we can do and what would be some of the parameters. And what we've decided is to look at the dates of 6 or 13 June as possible dates.
June or May?
June.
Okay. So we're May. Mike, you recall?
I think we put it out to June.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I've never been wrong before, so you've experienced it first tonight.
Okay.
Subsequently, I've reached out to
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I reached out to State Senator Bush to see if she's willing to either sponsor the event or
Contribute some
yeah,
funds.
do something along those lines. And I should get a response back. I've talked to the office again today, and they promised me to have some kind of response by the end of the week, so we'll have an idea of depending upon what happens then, I have some other options that I can reach out to.
The cost associated with this is for the truck, the shredding truck, is, what was it, $400 for 3 hours approximately?
It depends on which company you get. It could be anywhere from $400 or $500 to upwards of $1,000. We're trying to obviously go to the lower amount. That's why this delay to see whether we can get some support from outside. And if not, one of the sponsor or one of the contractors that Swalpo has will give them some kind of discount, so we have some other options that we can look at if this doesn't come out with Senator Bush.
And Swalpo picks up 50% one way or the other.
Yeah. And we thought we might have, in addition, there's always going to have people coming in for the shredding event, but we thought we might have a recycle-orama as well. So we'll be collecting textiles, shoes, socks, glassware, not glassware, glasses, and batteries. We will not, this first time around, be looking at electronics, because we get the word out to the Lake County at large, we could have a real inundation. So we're going to just try with those to begin with. So I'll, as soon as I get more information, I'll let the board know if we have a specific date and a specific partner. And one other item, the mayor asked me to update our EMA regulations. So I've since coordinated with Lake County, and they're sending me some stuff. And as soon as I get through reviewing that, then I'll make some coordination with some of the local communities that we relate to see what needs to be done to update that.
To clarify that assignment, we're not looking to start our own EMA again, but what we don't have is, okay, what happens if it's a crisis? What do we do? What do you do if I'm not here? So that's what I've asked George to work on, because we will fall, or we do fall under the EMA plans for Lake County and for Grace Lake and the Greater Round Lake Fire Department. But there's still things that we should be prepared for, since we are the leaders of the community. Okay? Anything else, George?
No, that's, unless anybody has any questions.
Do we still have the old EMA?
Manual?
Yes, I have.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
And looking at it, going through it was one of the reasons made me think, we need to redo this, because it's from, I believe, 2010. So it's time. All right, thank you, George. Great Age Club, Georgiana.
The Great Age Club had their holiday party in December at Jimmy's Char House, and it was very successful. And their meetings are the first Thursday of the month here at the Village Hall from 10:30 to 12. So anyone that's 60 or better is welcome to come, or if there is someone in your household that's 60 and better, you are welcome to come. There's no charge, we just want your company. Some transportation information. PACE has a service that's called On Demand, and anyone, not just paratransit, but anyone, whether they're don't have to be disabled or seniors, but anyone can call and even on the same day to see if you could get curb-to-curb service. However, in this case, it's a limited area. It's from Cedar Lake Road to 45 and from 120 to Montville Road. And the idea is that by narrowing the size of the area, it won't take as long for riders to get to where they need to go. So if this is something that's of interest to you, you can check it out on PACE website. Other things about transportation. A couple of years ago, a marketing study was done, financed by Lake County, to look into paratransit, which is for seniors and the disabled, to see what services we have, what needs to be added, what we're doing right, and what things we can improve. And one of the first recommendations that came out of that study was that a working group should be found or created to include all of the people, the agencies that would be impacted by this. So it's PACE and the townships, veterans, at their Lake County Partners, which deals with the economics of it, and what their job is to create or to assign a lead agency that would oversee whatever changes are going to be made to the paratransit services. And what they're doing now is they're having representatives from the different counties, collar counties, come and talk to the group and explain to the group the things that worked well and the things that didn't go well, and so that they hope to not reinvent the wheel, but to take the best of the things that the other counties are doing, so that we can improve the services available. Another thing on the Squaw Creek long-term plan, apparently that's not going to start until spring or summer. So,
Was it a year ago?
or something like that. But I do see emails for the Des Plaines River and some other projects, but I guess I don't know whether it's because it's ESSA that they're going alphabetically or whatever, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. So that's all I've got right now.
Thank you. While we're on transportation, I forwarded to each of you for the last couple of months the PACE report. And if you look how much they're not making off our routes. I don't know this, but I would not be surprised if somewhere along the line there was not some effort to shut those routes down.
They thought about doing it last year, but there was a hue and cry, so they said they would continue it for one more year. PACE is working on a strategic plan, and there's going to be major changes. There may be fixed routes that are discontinued. There are a lot of changes that are coming, so they're aware of problems, and it's a matter of trying to figure out what's the best way to solve them. I know they're looking into Uber and Lyft and contracts with taxis as part of the plan to make the service more efficient.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll turn it over to Steve Zahner from Robinson.
Good evening, I'm Steve Zahner. I'm with Robinson Engineering. I've been your village engineer now for a few years. In the stead, Greg Bruin was here. This is my first time back since Greg has left. I have some big shoes to fill. Anyway, in order to accomplish that, the Mayor has asked that we have a little bit of a discussion this evening on GIS. I brought Mr. Steffen with. Al Steffen is a GIS in our office, or on our parlance. He's a bit of a guru. He's been involved in GIS for many years with a number of municipalities. He's been with Robinson now for about 7 years, and I'm going to turn it over to him, and I'm going to be his Carol Merrill and move this slideshow forward.
What's GIS?
Geographic Information System.
Microphone.
Oh, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Al Steffen, and yes, as Steve has shared with you, I've been in the municipal business with consulting engineers for over 37 years. I have taken communities from its infancy of dealing with GIS to full-blown asset management, so I've got a vast array of experiences in GIS and with GIS. And it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight and share some of my enthusiasm for what GIS is. GIS is Geographical Information Systems. And we'll go through this a little bit and hopefully share with you tonight, is GIS for us? And you can help make that decision. So the agenda for tonight is to answer your question exactly, what is GIS? What are the benefits of GIS? As well as talking about the next steps. If you choose to follow and pursue GIS, what would you need to do? And where would you need to start? So hopefully we'll answer these questions for you tonight. And but the first question is, what is GIS? So a lot of people, GIS is a lot of different things. And people use it for a lot of different things. And as you can see in this, this word map, it's just, some say it's software, some say it's data collection, some say it's modeling, some say it's mapping, some say it's planning. It can be a lot of things. So what we'll do is, the next slide is Geographic Information Systems is the definition. It helps you to use the data and information and put it together into one spot. So it can be readily used by everyone, and it's consistent because it's housed and stored in one location. I like to break it into, three prominent segments, but it's really document management. There's parcel management of ownership of lots. There is public safety element that can be incorporated into it, as well as infrastructure management. And basically what it does is it takes all that information, puts it on a layer, as you see here. One could be, all the watersheds and all the floodplains, and all that information is on the top layer. Information on the parcels and what that's all about. And who is, some take it to the extent of ownership of the parcels and collecting. And you collect all that data because it's all referenced back to a geospatial spot. It's all referenced to one spot so you can get back to it. And then you take that information and put it all together. So as you can see, there's lots of different applications for this. And your mind could really go wild with it. But as you can see in this diagram, some use it for ordering, equipment, or ordering or scheduling, maintenance items, so that it can, you can track every time you touch a fire hydrant. You can track every time you touch a valve. Every time, you do anything. When was the last time you painted the tank? When is the last time you did this? And you put all that data together. Some use it for work order history, mobile maps. You can take it to the extent, and it's subjective to where the village wants it to go. But you can. Some have communities follow their trucks and their plowing route, so that you can see where those trucks are. And people can say, oh yeah, they're coming down my street next, or they'll be coming down my street next, and it can all be real time. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you need to do. I'm just saying that these are some of the opportunities, some of these possibilities, and it's all collected into one source again. So, what are the benefits of GIS? Now that you have a little bit better idea of what that is, the key is better record keeping. In my experience through the years, and I shared with the mayor one of my experiences, where public works or water superintendent wasn't willing to share information about his water main, where it was when I first got out of college. And it was sad because one, he was wrong. It was 10 feet off from where it was. And, but now you'll be able to actually pinpoint within a various degree of accuracy that where everything is. Where is the water main? Where is the V-box? Where is the valve? So that should there be an emergency, you need to be able to shut off a valve. What valves do I need to shut off so I can isolate it? Go ahead.
I've told Al that I might interrupt every now and then, bring it down to a Hainesville example. For those of you who've been around a little bit, remember when the air relief valves all went boom? Air relief valves in the sewer or the sanitary system. If we had those on a system such as this, we would have known that they hadn't been checked in 20 years. We would have known the location. When the one went bad, that was easy to find because poop was coming out of it. But where the other 11 were, Deemer had to go out and chop down brush. Use a metal detector to locate it because the posts that had been driven in the ground, marked 20 years ago, had rotted away. So a GIS program in this case would have not tracked what type of valve it was, when it was put in, when it was serviced, what its geographical location was with longitude and latitude coordinates. So we'd have that on record. Back to you, sir.
And the technology, as it has advanced, you can keep a lot of this information either on a tablet or you can keep it even on your phone. And that's the advantage. As Public Works goes out and tries to locate a valve, where is this valve? You know, okay, you can pull up the map on your phone and isolate it and know exactly where it is. Because as the mayor has indicated, when you're in a crisis mode, and when you're, you know, whether there's a fire or a water main break, you know, not to say that you have a lot of them, but when you need it, you want to know where that information is, and you don't have time to come back, pull up a map, you know, and then try to figure out where is this, you know, then take the map back out of the field, and then shut down the valve. You know, there's a lot of time that goes by, a lot of wasted water that goes by, and especially during the summer, during the drought season, it's something that you want to know. It's very cost effective. Just hurrying along, because I promised I wasn't going to be too long-winded. The analysis, you know, you can view issues, as the mayor had indicated, about air gaps. You can talk about, you know, you can look at the impacts long-term, short-term. Right? You can use it for planning and scheduling. You know, what is the life cycle of my water main? What is the life cycle of these valves? And you can start plugging that in so you can make better and more informed decisions. Improve communications. Again, everything is centrally located. Everything is right there at your fingertips. So now, should anybody need to go out there and take a look at something, they don't have to go back and pull up maps. They can just pull it up on the phone or on a tablet. Transparency. You know, a lot of communities use GIS. They, you know, with some lockouts, you know, not all the information you want publicly known where everything is. However, many communities, again, show you where the trucks are. They'll show, you know, maps of the streets, that whatever information you deem to be out there, you know, and information with respect to the road program, and what roads are going to do this year, what roads are we planning on doing in 5 years. You know, so that way you can demonstrate to the constituents that you have total transparency. So planning, accurate mapping, and that all results in cost savings. The more you can plan, the more you can budget. You know, as you go through your budget cycle, you know, you can say, hey, within the next few years, I need to do this, and you can plan accordingly and budget accordingly, rather than it's a better way to be proactive than reactive.
The location aspect. One of the first things, and we'll hand you a proposed budget or a long-term budget in a little bit. But one of the things we want to do first is locate all the B boxes. In some of the neighborhoods, the curbs are marked. So you can look at the curb marking, look at the house with the water meter, and you know the B box is somewhere in between. Not all the curbs are marked. In fact, most are not. Try finding a B box in the front yard that's covered with snow. With the information that can be put into this system, Mike can put in the latitude and longitude in his phone and get within a couple feet and then use the metal detector. We have a lot of B boxes that are covered by grass, and then B boxes are used to shut off the water supply to a house. And we have shut-offs every month. Sometimes people are moving out, sometimes people haven't paid their bills. We have to be able to know where these are, sir.
Exactly. And so the more information, and as the populace, you want to pass this information on to the next generation. You want to be able to, that the next generation of, Public Works, not to say any that you're retiring. But-
Generation.
But, you know, you want to pass along good and accurate information, as I demonstrated in my, when I first got out of school. So that should give you some of the ideas of benefits. Anybody have any questions about benefits? I guess before I move along and how to collect the data.
I've got questions particularly.
Pardon?
I've got questions, but I can wait till the end.
Oh, okay, okay, no worries. So how is the data collected? Well, you do have some maps now, you do have some atlases along the way. And you collect that data, you would take the maps and try to get the best feeling of where you're at with the locations. Obviously, everything would need to be field verified, but the best thing is to start with what you got, and then augment that information with either survey, depending on the grade or how the accuracy that you're looking for. You know, there's survey grade where, you know, some communities, again, they want a very accurate location. They want it within inches. And others will say, you know, hey, as long as I'm within 5 feet of it, I'll find it. It will be subjected to where the village wants to take its accuracy. But the key is start to collect the data and start to collect the data. And what I refer to as putting a line in the sand and saying, okay, from this point forward, we're going to just start to collect everything that we can, all the information that's available. So we can collect it via survey or GPS data collectors. And again, our phones now are so accurate into our location, they can get you within 2 to 3 feet of where you're at. So data can be inputted via your phone or a tablet. And, you know, i.e. one of the things that communities most likely will collect is data on your trees. You know, understanding, as some of you may have heard with the, you know, Dutch elm disease, et cetera, you know, understanding the impacts of Dutch elm. How many trees do we have that are, you know, elm trees, you know, so that you can project into the future. We have 55 trees, you know, and this is their life, you know, cycle, or this is how old they are. So now you can make an informed decision what you want to do with Dutch elm disease or something similar. Well, a tree is something that, you know, you don't need a high degree of accuracy. You're not going to hide a tree, it's not going to get buried. So that information can be collected more likely with, you know, again, either your phone or a pad, so that you can locate it, you can see it on an aerial, you can pinpoint it, label it, and then you can start collecting the data on it.
And initially, where would most of our data download come from? The county?
Yes, exactly. And that's part of the existing data. The county has been working with GIS since 1980s, into the 80s, and they've been collecting data. And what we would do is we would collect, we would go to the county, ask for the data, we would enter into an intergovernmental agreement with them to collect as much information as we can. We would download that information. But again, that's all parcel driven, so that way we have that base, and we would collect that base, make it a little bit more user friendly for the village to use, because it's a little obscure, you know, on how they collect the data. Because again, they're looking for the whole county, but they have aerial information, they have lot information, et cetera, and it goes all the way down into the voting records. So we would augment that with GPS and the county data and survey. So this is what it would look like. You know, you would be able to pull up a map, you would see where the utilities are, you'd see where the lot lines are, and again, it's all based on like an Excel spreadsheet. Turn off the layers, you can turn off the aerials, so you can see things a little bit more specifically. As this is one with B boxes. You can see where the hydrants are, you can see where the sanitary sewer is, and you can see where the lot lines are. So again, the benefits of GIS, just to summarize it, it allows you to organize, improve operational efficiency, you stimulate the community engagement into knowledge of what is their infrastructure, where they see their infrastructure, even what's buried, and provide a tool so that everything and all your decisions can be data driven. You can make an intelligent decision and an informed decision.
Here's one of the things that I see as a benefit. Since I've been mayor, I don't know how many times I've gone into the black files out there to look at plans to try to find where something is. Where's the water line? Where are the sewers? And I can't find it because we don't have it. Or, you know, we have a general idea. How many street signs do we have that we need to keep an eye on for replacement? Where are all the fire hydrants? We have people running into our streetlights all the time. When's the last time we changed that head? What head is on that street light? It's that sort of stuff that we can kind of gather, but we're not going to be in these chairs forever. And then the person that comes in, persons or people that come in next, where do they get that information? Do they have to go back and dig through the paper files? This would put it at their fingertips.
Just to expand a little bit, you know, in a current situation, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the government passed a law stating that communities are required to have a certain reflectivity on their signs. And, you know, many communities are like, okay, well, first of all, how do I measure reflectivity? How old are my signs? Where are my signs? What's it going to cost me? Well, with GIS, you'll have a sign inventory. You'll know exactly what signs you have. You'll have a rating because you'll be able to, you know, detect what your reflectivity is. You know, just basically a tool that shines a light on it and tells you how much it looks back at you. So you'll be able to do that analysis. The key in what I saw with many of the communities I worked with is they were able to go back to their state legislators and say, hey, wait a minute. Do you know how much this is going to cost me? You know, you're passing these rules. It sounds good. However, what is this really going to cost the community? And you'd be surprised how much it costs the community just to replace the signs. And that's just one example of what the mayor is referring to, is that you can make an intelligent decision. You can fight for what your rights are. And so people can understand exactly this is what it's going to cost me to replace all my signs. And there's a cost associated with each of those, you know, legislations. Go ahead. Oh, I thought you had a question. I'm sorry.
Well, I do have a bunch of questions, but I'll let you.
Well, it's in conclusion, you know, geographic informational systems is a way of collecting all the data of all your assets, putting it in one spot. It's all related to geospatial. You know, it's located to a spot. It's referenced to a spot on the map. Typically parcels. And the benefits are
Numerous.
numerous. You can't count, you know, how do you figure the cost, or how do you analyze the benefits of being more responsive to water main grid? How do you measure the response to having your streets all named, and how do you measure the response of being able to fight legislation and address things with your legislators? So the benefits are numerous. The steps would be, you know, to take the base map, develop your right-of-way, you get the county map, you know, county information from the county, and you start building. And it's like a building block. You start with a solid base. You have a good base. You can build on that. That's why that's a big part of it. And then you start adding your assets as you need them, and you start adding water main, buffalo boxes, valves, hydrants, storm sewer, sanitary sewer. You know, and you start building your assets. And, you know, and defining what you want to collect, what data you want to collect. Okay. And that's numerous as well.
Thank you. Before we get into questions, I have a handout. It's Robinson's proposal. We've spread it out over 4 years. The first page is kind of an explanation. The dollars start appearing on the second page. So if you want to take a minute, take a look at it. Just breeze through that, and then we'll let you ask your questions of Al. Sit down for free, Al.
Okay.
Okay. What we've done here is broken out to 4 years. The first year being the more expensive because of the initial setup, and it's also the biggest job of locating all the B boxes. Mike and I talked and deemed that to be the most useful to us right off the bat. Then you can see year 2 is 28.5, year 3, 60,000, and year 4, 38,000. And there would be an annual cost much lower after those years. I don't need to really study these right now, but that'll give you something to look at. The next serious discussion we need to have on this after the questions here, the first year is on the budget for next year, or at least submitted to the budget, so we'll have to decide whether or not that applies based on how the board feels. All right, questions for Al?
How old is the software? How long has this been around? Is it new?
Oh, this software's been around since the 70s, if not before that. It's constantly evolving. It's not a.
It's not something new that just came out.
No.
If you Google ArcGIS, you'll see.
Is this, are they the only company that does this?
Yeah, Esri also is a huge player in the
ESRI.
Yeah, ESRI. You see them on TV pretty frequently.
Yeah, it's a large conglomerate that most communities use that as their basis, and ArcGIS, correct. Now, once you get into asset management, which is a whole separate conversation, yes, there are other software companies out there. We can have a discussion about that. But GIS has been around, and actually it will be around for years and years and years to come. Many countries have adopted GIS and embraced it much more than the United States has. And they are making decisions based on not what you want, but what you need, and you need to demonstrate. You won't get any federal dollars unless you can show that you need it. So Esri is the base, and they're modifying their programs accordingly. So, but it's been around for a long time.
We would not be buying the software. Robinson has ArcGIS. They would host it for us. We would own all the data.
And a license.
And a license.
With a license. It's 2 users.
And what would the maintenance here, after the 4 years, how much is it every year?
The maintenance costs are largely the elements that are shown. There's the hosting, the web subscription, and some of the utility updates are typically all you end up seeing on an annual basis. There's always, training or some support.
Well, let's say 4 years down the road, we're looking at
You're probably
base of
looking at 5 to. It's up to you. I mean, there is a.
Well, if you look at the year 1 budget, the very first line, the web subscription for 2 users is $1,500.
Right. And then there's updates.
What does 2 users mean?
One person, one login will be able to enter, edit data that would be at the village hall. In one, there would be a read-only license. You can see it and use it. So,
And even that one that would be at Village Hall could be portable, so that you would assign that, if it's going to be used, let's say it's in Mike DePauw's office, and we know that he's gonna go out to a field project, he can transfer that license to his phone. He goes out there and he can update the information right on his phone or a tablet or whatever else is available to him.
Who's responsible for the data input?
We would actually input that data. We have a GIS department of 3 people right now, and they would take that data, agglomerate it, develop those layers that you saw in Al's presentation earlier, representing the various infrastructure components that you have on top of the county's base maps. And the county's base maps would include, the parcel information, the waterways that we have listed right now. It would also incorporate any of the floodways or any of those related issues.
Some of that
Who does the input as time goes by? We change out values.
Well, the input that would be updated, that would fall on whoever's doing the updating. So let's say that you have a project that's going to be $500,000, and you're going to contract that out. You have Robinson Engineering be the construction engineer, we would actually do that inputting of the data, updating that information onto that specific layer, share that back with Mike, Mike would review and approve it, that would become shared knowledge appearing into your GIS system at that point. So there's always kind of a check and a balance. You always, if you give that out to somebody else to do, you want to have somebody internally back check that and make sure that it's completed to the satisfaction of the village.
We work with each community, individually as to what is the best way to collect the data. Sometimes, data that is not necessarily as specific, site-specific or complicated, those are some things that can be put in by perhaps, a summary intern, if you trust that they're going to put the information in correctly. I've had communities who try to save some money and also we have a bunch of data and it means nothing because the people didn't understand what the data was and what they were trying to put in. So we work with the community. There's things that, data that Mike will be able to input and directly. I don't want you to leave, I don't want to leave with you thinking that, we have to see everything. We help manage it, we help, guide you into this is stuff that is complicated, bringing in some of the maps, bringing in some of the data from the county. Those are more complicated issues that you have to understand the various datums and some of the other things that are behind the scenes to make that work. But once you have that platform, you're pretty much, we work so that, we don't want you to pay us just to pass along something.
Think back to those of you when we went to change to BSNA or software. When we first got it, none of us knew much about it at all. The company downloaded or transferred our old data out of our old program, loaded it, trained us, and were there for us daily on the phone. Say, oh, how do we do this? How do we do that? Now we're 4, maybe 5 years into it. Other than their updates, and we know how to use it. We know how to input material. We know how to, if we see something we like, say, hey, we'd like you guys to maybe change this and create this for us, they'll do it. But their role is getting less and less the more we know.
Correct. We're still responsible for the data, and inputting the data. Once this 4 years is gone, any changes are...
Yeah, once you have, the geography, all of the pieces are going to be there. Unless you change them, there's no need for us to be involved in it on a daily basis.
But that's my point, is that it's going to require diligence on our part to make sure that we're on top of the data.
Okay, let's say 10 years down the road, Hainesville gets rich and we draw an industrial site south of the railroad tracks, and it's brand new lines, water lines, sanitary lines, everything. Then I would expect that our engineers should be putting this stuff in for us. I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe we have to have a GIS expert in-house.
Absolutely not. Most of the communities don't have, their internal GIS. They don't have an internal GIS person. We post that information over the past decades. We've helped develop maps for these communities. They utilize them. In some cases, they have people who don't want to be responsible for it. They simply send us a list of what it is that they've done, and we input it and send it back to them. Others take that information, flip open their laptop. You know what? I was on hydrant number 562-4 yesterday, and I changed out this valve, and here it is. Here's the new one I put in. It's all a personalization, what you want to put into it.
That's why it's so hard to speak specific sometimes with this, is because there are so many possibilities what you can do with this. You can run queries on how many hydrants do you have, how many hydrants have you painted in the last 5 years, how many hydrants do you, we put it in 1978, because now that there's a manufacturer recall because some of the stems are breaking. It's information like that you want to be able to grab and run queries.
This appears to be a really powerful tool. Really powerful. The only weakness I can see is just the human interaction.
you know, we've been doing this for a long time, and, you know, and as I shared with you, you know, I've been involved, you know, from its infancy in Itasca in 1987 is when they started, you know, really getting into GIS, and so one of the things that we've seen some of the pitfalls, we've seen where some, you know, we try to plan around those things, so that we can head those off and we don't have those problems.
Right now, January 28, 2020, this is a shining employee. Right, this is a lot of money. Are we still going to be this excited about it in 7 years, in 10 years, in 15 years?
Well, you know, truly, what happens here is, when you have to use it, I'm sure we'll be excited about it, especially with Mike.
You know, one of the things that Alan mentioned was querying things when you find out, you know, what's going on. And as this community ages, you're going to want to know, how many valves do I have that are 20 years old? How many valves do I have that are 30 years old or 70 years old? You have to start using that information to properly plan on your replacement theory. We run into communities that have had water main that dates back into the late 1800s. We represent them. They have cast iron water main that's that thick, okay? They have water main that was put in the 50s and 60s that was also ductile iron, and it's rotting, you know? So here you have a piece of infrastructure that has a limited lifetime of 100 years, an estimated lifetime. This stuff, with the thickness like that, that's going to last until the 3000s, you know? We're not even going to be considering that. But that other stuff, we know now what's going on with the debilitation, with the corrosion. You start to plan things so that you, as a community, can properly plan your budgets. You can properly plan your how you're going to handle those issues as they come up.
Jack, it wasn't until about 10 years ago that, as a village, we actually came up with a 5-year plan for road replacement. Steve and I are just on the very beginning steps of a 5-year capital improvement plan, broader than just the roads for the village. One of the problems that we have is we don't know what we have. No, I'm not talking about the number of trucks or the number of tools we have in public work. We don't know what we have underground. And a lot of times when we have a manhole break or a valve break, we have to dig down, get someone to pull it out for us and go, yes, this is what we got. Now we got to stay closed down until we can order the part for this. So long term, having that knowledge in one place is going to save time and I believe money.
Other questions, one question that I have, okay, is once you've collected the data and everything else, most of it's going to be off of whatever we have with the county and stuff like that. But how do we verify that that's exactly where it should be underground? Because, you know, last time you had the water, the leak in that front there, where, you know, I mean, how do you verify that, okay, it's over here at this location and it could be 2 feet off to the other?
There's going to be a lot of that, you know, that 2 feet, that's not bad. 20 feet is where you end up having the issues. And it's only as good as the data that you can put into it. So locating the buffalo boxes is a huge element because those buffalo boxes are typically located just behind or just in front of a sidewalk, right? And it's right in line with where the water main is. The water main is fairly typically off of that by 5 or 10 feet or some known distance. That distance is identified by where the hydrant valves are. Okay, so, or not the hydrants, but the valves for the water mains themselves. You have to go out and find that information to locate it, and it's only going to get better as time goes on. Look, this is where it was located. We know where the valve is, but for some reason, that valve was offset by 3 feet from the water main. You don't know that until you're out there.
Part of the project will be going out and geolocating.
That's what I meant.
On sewer drains.
Yeah, without, I mean, you're not going to be breaking ground, but without.
No, so we'll actually go out there with a handheld Trimble device.
I'm sorry.
Trimble device,
Who
yeah.
doesn't do that?
Where's your mic up, Steve?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Here's, part of it will be, back up half a step. Discussion I had with Steve is that, is there any of this that Mike or Tim could do? Take out a tool and say, okay, here's a B-box, marked, and then turn that data over. And the answer was yes. So we will do in-house as much as we can, as long as we still do our other work. Some of it will be done by Robinson.
And again, the technology is just ever so vastly changing. You know, we can now take pictures of issues. So you have a hydrant that you replace the valve on the hydrant, or you have you know, somebody drives over one, you dig it out to replace it, you can take a picture of it, you put it in there. Now you've got a visual of where it's at. Now you sit there and you can plug it back into the data, back into it, and you know exactly where it is. So some of it's an evolving process, you know, but you're trying to start collecting the data, starting at having a start point. Because you can't get to the finish line unless you cross that starting point.
And Georgiana, just to carry that a little bit further, that's one of the reasons we broke it out to a 4-year job. Not only just money, but it's a lot of work. And if we can use Public Works to do some of it, we will.
I had a couple other questions. What about the data that we're getting from the county? Is there a charge for that?
No, it's just an intergovernmental agreement that you're going to get their information, whatever information they have, and we're going to share the information back to them. I mean,
That's already in your county tax rate.
I'm just curious. Just for example, over the 4 years that you worked here, how many V boxes did you have trouble finding?
50.
50?
I had, this is what, January? We had shut-offs this month. I had a shut-off over on Hunter's Way. Me and Tim were out there for an hour with 2 snow shovels, shoveling up the snow in this guy's yard to try to find his V-box. There was no marking on the curb. We got no information. Come to find out that the V-box is in the driveway underneath his car. Never found it.
All this came up is because of when that one.
Well, that time, when we dug halfway to China to try to find a water line, and we spent 9 days on a job, that kind of pushed it.
That was pushing it, that's right, that was the straw.
Yeah.
The camel's back was there for years, but the straw
We
really was.
Steve and I, Greg and I had talked about this, but in fact, we had a presentation here. A lady came in and talked to us about GIS, and that was way outlandish in cost. And we were even trying to join another community as part of a group to get a bargain, and it didn't work.
One of the things that the mayor and I have worked on or worked with here are maps that are historic in nature, that we have some information. We will use that information as kind of, this is what we start with, okay? We'll locate where those storm sewers are, where the sanitary are, and the water mains. And that'll be information that'll get updated as we go through this exercise, every piece of it, so that we will have something as a base.
Another long-range view is that, God, I wish this could have happened years ago. Anything new that is built, the developer will have to provide us with the locations in a form that will go into GIS, so we don't have to hunt it down. I've looked back on the various development plans for our neighborhoods to try to locate something, and it's not there.
A couple of things. Losing my train of thought, I have so many things going through my head. We have attempted, and I commend you, Jerry, for doing a lot of maintenance.
Microphone, Georgiana, please.
That you have done a lot of maintenance around the village with lift stations and well houses to make sure that they're being checked regularly, and that we put in a lot of money bringing them up to what is right now, because there were a lot of things that were old and not replaced that should have been. And I know that we have been working on, like you say, the roads that we have a 5-year plan on, and I thought we had that on a number of other systems in the village. So I guess if there are things that we've already, like these 11 things that we just replaced, don't we have a record of all that stuff that we've done?
Here's, to answer that specifically, here's what we got. Using Outlook, which is our email, we developed what we call a long-range calendar. And we put in repetitive things, like Mike has used it for change oil in trucks, and we put a reminder on it, change in this month. We've had it for one issue that just came up. It's 5 years since we repaired the water tower. It's time to inspect it. It's already on the calendar 5 years out, but that's in Outlook calendar. What that calendar can't hold easily, unless we type out a long narrative, is what equipment do we have in it, what condition is it in, who is the manufacturer. It just, all it is a calendar reminder that goes beep one morning and says, in 2 months, this is due. That's the long-range planning that or system that we have in place at this point. And we're using it widely, but it's not exactly cumbersome, but
Not what it's designed
no, it's I thought it was a pretty good idea when we came up with it, and it does help us a lot more than what it used to depend on. Somebody over in Public Works going, you know, I think it's about time. Mike's got a spreadsheet that he uses for various pieces of equipment to keep track of, not only as a list, but a trail of information. But it's on Mike's computer in Mike's name, and if he croaks or if he decides, if his computer flops, there we go.
Playing obsolescence, right?
I assume this program is, this system is agreeable, so you can find out what
Absolutely
you
it is,
want,
yes.
you know, very succinctly.
On any number of different items.
and becoming more so every year. I have a question with regards to the future planning. Jerry brought up a good point. Now we need to know, don't get a big head. That 5 years from now we're going to need to do this, 10 years from now we're going to need to do that, we just replaced the roof, 15 years from now we may want to replace that. Does the software have the capability of saying, hey, ding, 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 your roof is going to need to be replaced in 5 years, start adding it into the budget, or is there something?
Oh, absolutely, and what it does, and you can program it however you like, but what you can start saying, hey, within, you know, as you're managing your crews, you can say, hey, you know, this year we want to do 50 catch basins, we want to clean 50 catch basins. That's the goal for each year. Every year we're going to do 50, and we're just going to keep going down the line. It can help you program that so that it's a reminder on a weekly work order, you know, so that the guys will have a work order either on a daily basis or on a monthly. So you can put it into a work order, and you can also put it into a purchasing order. So there's all sorts of things that you can do with it, and it will automatically populate a question or send an email as a reminder saying, hey, within this month you are planning on doing, or you had said you were going to do this. And so that way you can manage your crews, you can manage your time, and you can manage your budgets more effectively.
I'm thinking that what John is asking is
Yeah,
to know the useful life of something. So that
Absolutely, those things all have a projected useful life, but as with anything else, just like the description of the pipe that I just gave you, that is not, you know, we have general information available to it, but you're going to want to inspect it. You're not going to want to go out there and replace, you know, 4 miles of water main. If you can go out and pop a couple of holes, look at it, and determine if its integrity is being, sacrificed in any way, shape, or form. However, similarly, okay, I've got 15 hydrants, hydrants, that's a good one. When was the last time they were rebuilt? We've never had a fire, we know that they use them for flushing. Have we ever really load tested those fire hydrants? You go in there and you query that kind of information, and it develops, you can have it develop a plan for you to go through and test out various components.
And we can attach a potential cost to it.
You can
So
set
if we
cost.
decide to do 30 fire hydrants, we can project it should cost $8,000.
And not only that, you're gonna get information back when you go to put in that information, that this one's a Mueller, this one's a plow. I know that the cost to rebuild a Mueller is gonna be $3,200. The cost to rebuild a plow is gonna be $3,600. It comes back with dollars. So if you have them tied to a year, you go back out, you look at your, what's the annual additional expense, you add that in, and all of a sudden you know exactly where you're at, within a few hundred or a few $1,000s.
Well, if I can answer, one real quick thing. It's not just today. You can also project out, so if you're looking at a fire hydrant, we have a condition rating of 3. The next time you have a condition rating of 2. And then also you say, well, wait a minute, I gotta replace this at a condition rating of 1. So you can plan on it and it can forecast out for you. So that's how sophisticated these programs are starting to get.
I can promise you if we get this, it won't be that sophisticated today. It'll take us a while to get there.
Yes.
Mike, I know that you've been doing a lot of correcting on our sidewalks. Do you keep a record of where the work was done so that?
We have a list when Surefoot came in and the sidewalks that they ground down for the trip hazards. I've got that list, and they also made us another list for remove and replace the panels. And that's the list we're going to go by when we start doing the project in the spring.
Is this a manual list or
The paper list, yep.
So, for example, if you have that information and you could input it, is it still going to be $5,000 if he has all that information already? What is it that you're going to do?
No, that cost, I said $5,000, that's just kind of a grab it out of the air. We know that you have to have a license for it, but that's going to be dependent. Beyond that, if Mike, we go through this educational process here, Mike knows and is comfortable with inputting that data, you don't need me to do it, you've got Mike. So there's $1,500 for the license, that's what ArcGIS currently charges. Maybe next year it's 16, I can't tell you.
Let's follow up with your sidewalk question. We could have a picture of a section of sidewalk marked June 2020. And if any sections, let's say this is repaired, or this is a section and there are 3 bad pads. And you might be able to, depending on the picture, be able to see where it is. Mike could use that tool to say, all right, we are going to fix X number this year, and then help figure the costs on that year-to-year basis. The picture can be updated when it's repaired. We just have an instant record.
I understand that. I just want to try and figure out what we can do as a cost saving. If he has some of the information, can he put it in and it therefore wouldn't cost as much as what these?
Yes is the answer to that.
And the more we learn,
The better you'll be at it.
the better we can do.
And the more you get your hands on the software, and you have the people use it, the better off you're going to be.
And to tell you the truth, since I'm kind of geeky, I might be pretty interested in working on it for the first couple, depending on how long I end up seeing in office. It might keep me in office a little longer, that office, working. All right, any other questions?
Yeah.
Because we still have other business. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I
That's all right.
bunch of questions.
Go.
So what else?
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
I can remember several years ago when we had a little get together to decide what we're gonna do for a fund for the water system. And one of the things we started out with was, what equipment do we have, what's its life cycle, and all kinds of stuff.
Yes,
I
sir.
assume we can deal with that kind of
Absolutely, that would be one of the first elements that we'll put in.
I don't want you to take this the wrong way, because we're very satisfied with what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
But down the road, assuming there's a new board, a new mayor and everything else, and they want to go to a different company, well, first of all, is there anybody else doing what you're doing?
Absolutely, there's a number of consultants that do it. And what happens here is, we would host one of your sites. The mayor calls me up tomorrow and says, Steve, I like you personally, but the rest of you are going.
Don't tempt me.
But the bottom line is it's your data. You know, we're going to sign an agreement and it's going to be your data. We're just going to host and help you along with this process. We're your trusted advisor. If we're no longer your trusted advisor, we're going to bring the data back to you or to whomever you direct us to.
Okay, just a quick question. Speaking of, now, we have access, and we're really talking about a license for 2 people, basically, that have access to the data.
It's 2 users at any one time. So if the mayor decides, let's say that you want to put this out on your website, you wouldn't provide one of your licenses to that. That would be a view-only a picture. You know, that would be essentially a PDF of that. And you wouldn't share like your water system information. You wouldn't share your wastewater system. Certainly you could share, where's the stop signs in town? Where are the road projects that are going on?
But I think your question is, if we have more in-house individuals having access, like what if we want Mike and Tim to have devices, their access on their phone, we might have to increase the number of licenses.
You might have to, or you might, when Mike's using it, Tim couldn't, or vice versa, or something along. You know, if there's 3 or 4 people that are educated, chances are 1 or 2 of them would be the most that would be using it for manipulating the data at any one time.
Right.
They can always go in and look at the data and try, you know, at least gather the information from it. They couldn't manipulate it without the license.
Okay, so the license gives you manipulation capability, but anybody could look at it?
There's a viewership limitation too,
Oh, okay.
but it's a little bit broader than that.
All right, what kind of security would there be for people in the hosting organization, in other words, for looking at this data? I mean, you say it's our data, but
They will
who
have,
else has
they'll
access?
have full access. Robinson would have
We would have
full access to
We
it.
would have viewing access to it. We would only have, you know, if there was manipulation going on, we would take the license that you would have, utilize that license for that time period that we were updating you to or manipulating that data. Go ahead, correct?
Sorry. No, we have our own licenses, and we would have an agreement of, you know, how we're gonna house it, and who you're gonna lock out, and who you're not
And
gonna
this
lock
is
out.
why we brought Al with
So you would have your licenses, and the key in that is you can always expand that. You know, and I'm a firm believer when it's in more people's hands, it becomes more user friendly, and once everybody uses it more, you'll see the value. You'll start applying it to things that you didn't really realize. You know, you can get it down to the data, how many, you know, what's the average age of a certain lot or a certain area. You can relate that back to Pace, you can relate it back to other venues and other places. But, you know, again, I don't want to overwhelm you because it is very overwhelming. You can expand it, but you want to start small, and then you can, the more people that use it, the more people that get their hands on it, the better off you're all going to be.
What other communities in the vicinity use this system?
Grays Lake is a huge proponent. There's a couple of, Round Lake uses it. I don't know if Round Lake Beach uses it. Almost every community uses a GIS platform.
Do you host those communities as well?
We don't host those here we're kind of a new player in town. We have a large number of communities along that DuPage, Will, Cook, you know, that area down there.
Are there, do you have some that are as small as ours?
Absolutely. And we host it for, you know, smaller communities, we host it for huge communities. We've hosted it for Tinley Park, for Romeoville, you know, those are communities that are approaching 100,000 population.
Itasca, Lombard,
Right, but
Roselle.
I'm asking if you meant, if little villages like ours with less than 4,000 people, are
We
they
do.
using this too?
Yes, they do. And quite honestly, it helps the smaller communities a lot more because they have a much smaller number of staff people that they can utilize. And if one of your staff leaves for another job, 50% of your knowledge just walked out the door. You know, getting that information and archiving it is enormous. It's so much help. Sorry.
George, did you have more questions?
No, I think most of mine are already been answered.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to make a comment. Mike and Tim and Dave are, I would say, working at the limit of the number of hours in the day that they can do things. Maybe it's a little bit unrealistic to think that they're going to have time to do some of this locating as well.
Mike?
Is that something that your summer help can help with? I mean, I don't know how you would get this done along with everything.
George, as the summer help that we hire, I wouldn't trust them to run a GPS locator.
Okay.
That would be something that me or Tim would do. I think we keep Dave out of it. If Dave were to help, he would probably charge the village for his time.
But, I mean, even if,
But correct me if I'm wrong, the numbers you gave us in the initial budget overview is with you doing the work, not.
Yeah, with us doing 100% of the
So-
work. And even at that point, you know, the mayor and I briefly talked about, you know, what Robinson does in the summertime is we hire college engineering students, you know, that are junior year, senior year, people who want to get into this business. This is a great opportunity. We can reduce our rates for that kind of work. So there are some cost-saving opportunities here. We had to give you numbers that would be based on, you know, having a full-time engineer come out here and do that work, just so that we have some framework to start from. And the mayor and I, I'm sure, will have additional discussion. We make sure we get this done in a timely fashion, using somebody who is a knowledgeable individual.
could we stretch it out over 6 years instead of 4?
That is
That's our,
village's
that would be our
purview.
choice.
Yes.
But with an understanding that the longer you drag it out, the less information you have to make a decision. So with that is an understanding.
So trade-off.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
The first budget I put together had it spread out over 3. When Steve and I sat down, came up with these figures, we went, oh, no, that's not going to happen.
So this is the maximum? You're saying that this?
No. We can change it as needed. I mean, even if we sign an agreement, this agreement, it's like any other contract. If it isn't working for us or we need more time, we can take more time. Right now, it's kind of a flip of a coin. We don't really know how it's going to flow until we get there.
So let me understand, are you saying that you calculated this on a basis of a full-blown certified engineer hours?
Yeah, we have people who are trained in GIS information gathering. Those are the people that we've identified in there. In some cases, they're engineers, in other cases, they're not. You know, a GIS expert doesn't need that be an engineer to do that job. But they do have to have a lot of knowledge. So what we used were knowledgeable people, knowing that there's, you know, the village has an economic design here to try to keep it low. I had to give you numbers, you know.
I just wasn't clear what you said.
So in other words, the budget's budgeted higher
Yes,
than
yes,
necessarily.
it's at or a little bit above, and similarly, you know, with
what I talked about with the mayor here is, we provide you with a task order for the first year only, and then as things go on, you all would make the decisions as we progress.
And we are not approving or disapproving this tonight.
I understand.
All
I
right.
appreciate that you brought us all into understanding this.
Would I do anything differently?
Yes.
No, we won't go there.
Well,
All right.
just as a closing comment, you want a firm foundation in the beginning. And once you have that firm foundation, then, once you have a firm foundation, you can build and shape and do whatever you want, where you see your priorities. And these, as Steve had indicated, this is the first shot, and you may change your priorities, you may change something else somewhere down the line. We're just trying to give you a firm foundation in that first year.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you.
Last call, questions?
Yeah, just one. So what we're doing tonight in this one ordinance that we're approving,
No ordinance about GIS tonight.
but this, it's just intergovernmental agreement.
That's something altogether different. It is not GIS, it has to do with our
Building.
permits.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. If you do have any questions, feel free to give me a call. Absolutely.
This one.
Oh, yeah. Okay? Thank you. Let us move forth. Madam Clerk, anything to report?
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Mayor's report is included. We'll get it. Thanks. All right, on to business. Everybody with me?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We need a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement for land management system access and configuration for the village of Hainesville.
Second.
Discussion. George, what this is, going back, we've created, or at least have the foundation in place for a rental inspection program. This is the software the county uses that we'll be able to use in two different ways, at least two different ways. One, right now, as we talked earlier today about the issuing of permits. Roseanne collects the permit applications, she makes a list, she scans it, and then forwards it to the county. They do their magic, they send stuff back. This software is what they use. We will be able to eventually, I don't think that eventually is too far out, people will be able to apply on our website for permits. It'll go directly into Lake County, and so that'll take some work out of our office. The other part is when we end up with our rental inspection ordinance in place, since the county does our inspections, we'll be able to track it. We'll know what the properties are, when it was inspected, and since in the ordinance there's a variance of when you may get re-inspected. Basic, every year. If you pass year 2 without needing any corrections, you don't need it for 2 years. Software will track it, will interact with the inspectors.
Just as a matter of information, do we only do this for the single-family homes, or do we get involved in
The inspections, or the rental inspections, everything, anything that's rental. So it would be townhomes, folding property,
What about
and single-family homes.
permitting? Do we do that for the permitting too?
Anybody that makes a change that falls under required permit, yes. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question though.
Yeah, now, do the inspectors have to come out when a permit is issued, or is that after a permit is issued to see that the work is being done right?
It varies. For example, if they're building a deck, it requires multiple visits, because they have to inspect the whole post holes, then they have to inspect the finished product. Fences is 2 visits. We have a number that are 1 visit.
Like roofs is one visit.
So they can issue a permit without seeing anything because they have to wait till the work starts?
Permits are issued on plans,
Right, okay.
okay? So that the owner submits a plan, like, here's my deck plan, okay, then the owner has to wait for approval from us to proceed. And then they'll have, again, in decks, they'll have 2 inspections to make sure it was done right.
So when the county issues the permit, do they make a note that they have to follow up with these people to?
Permit comes to us, Roseanne contacts the individual to come pick the permit up, and then Roseanne follows up scheduling.
So when you get a permit, it will say you need these inspections. We tell them, Roseanne tells them, you need to call for these inspections. Then call us to set it up. So we have a daily log that Roseanne sends in for the inspections to follow through. Then Roseanne goes through these permits, like a roof is an easy inspection when it's complete. So some people don't call and say, I need it inspected. So Roseanne will follow up and call these people and say, you didn't get it inspected, we need to do this, we need to set it up. And then, so each permit has a different cost because it's also dependent on how many inspections are done.
So she keeps track of whether they call for the inspection or
Yes.
not, even if it, so they can't just finish the deck and.
Oh, no, because the permit will eventually get filed into the homeowner's file, but it doesn't get filed until all the inspections have been done and the approval has, everything's passed.
Another process that I put in place is we're going to go through 3 times a year with full village residential inspections, where inspectors will walk the entire village, and that way we sometimes catch projects that weren't permitted, and we can deal with those residents. And then twice a year we do businesses inside and out.
So if somebody gets a permit and then doesn't get the inspections and just does the work, is there a fine or something?
Double the permit cost, and
they might have to undo some of the project, depending on what they've done. Like post holes for a fence is a big thing, because it has to be so many feet down. So, yeah, they get double the permit and they can be fined.
Just, trying to.
Roseanne, Roseanne keeps up with it. She has that knowledge because she works with them all. She knows what's going on.
How does she do that? On paper, there's no automated system, is there?
What do you mean, how does she
She's
do
got-
what?
To keep
how does she
up
keep
with,
the records on it?
Well, she has the permits, so when a permit is issued, we get a copy and the homeowner gets a
It's paper.
copy.
it's
It's
paper,
paper,
yeah.
yeah.
And so this system will allow us to do this in automation?
This will allow you
We'll allow it will track it. We'll still have to give the homeowner a paper.
Well, no, I understand that, but as far as keeping track of all this stuff,
It should all be done in
It
this
should.
program.
this program is good.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned when the inspections are done, they're looking at the outside, but then you mentioned something about the business being inside as well. So businesses,
Fire inspections.
we can go inside, but.
Fire department can.
Yeah, but you can't do that with the homeowners.
No.
So every year when business licenses are renewed, the fire department goes in, like they just asked me for a business listing. So they will be starting their inspections with all the businesses to make sure that they're